I now call this committee of the whole, the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. The first item we're going to be talking about is policy 501.05, closing schools for board's second discussion. Did you want to take that, Allison, or you want me to see if there's any questions on it?
Yeah, just ask for questions. It's our second discussion, so just ask if there are any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I'm not seeing any.
Awesome. Then we will vote on it at our next meeting.
All right, thank you. All right. Now we will move on to long-range facilities planning survey review. I will turn it over to the superintendent.
I believe we are on our 9th chance at the survey that's been round and round for feedback, and now we're ready to bring it for the board. So I'll turn this over to John and Matt. Matt's with us virtually. We also have some friends from School Perceptions with us on tonight. So I'll let you do the introductions, John.
Thanks for having our team tonight. Matt will probably want to say a few words, but joining us is Bill Foster and Darren Stevens. They are from School Perceptions. They are the team that has done hundreds and hundreds of surveys in communities just like Davenport. The document that you're going to see tonight is, as TJ said, version 9. So this has not been an easy one to put together. It's a several-page document that will get mailed out to every household within the district with the goal of seeking data-based feedback that the board can use to assist in decision-making as we start to solidify what the master plan looks like for the district. So with that, Matt, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I appreciate the intro. I think that we'll kind of turn it to Bill and Darren. Bill should look familiar to many of you as he presented previously regarding just the concept and approach of community surveying. So we're here to support Bill and Darren this evening as they introduce the survey to you.
Well, great. Thanks for having me back again tonight. Can you see my screen? Is that working?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So just a kind of a flyover tonight. What are we trying to accomplish? My advice always to school boards is think big picture. When you see the survey, ask yourself the question, is this the right tone and tenor? In terms of the messaging, when we do a survey, we always think we were going to gather data, but we're also going to communicate and educate. And so that's kind of the first question, is this the right message? And then also, are we asking the right questions that you'll get the data you need to make decisions? So big picture, you're going to see a survey that will answer the questions, which pathway do we pursue in terms of grade level configuration, as well as ultimately testing support for an $85 million bond. So we'll get into those details, but that's kind of the big picture. In terms of survey content, it's always tempting, and especially for board members, you've been thinking about this critically for many years, probably. Our job is to make it simple. So to write a survey so that we always say our audience is grandma and grandpa, but also we have to keep in mind that over half the U.S. population reads at a 6th grade level or below. So we have to stay away from using too big of words. And also word length of the survey is critical. As John mentioned, we've done hundreds of these. We found that the sweet spot's around 1,800 words. Your survey right now is just over 2,000. You do have a complicated project, but we're always leery. There is a point where if it gets too wordy, people won't read any of it. So we're kind of pushing the limits right now of wordiness. And then another thing to keep in mind is this is not a marketing tool. We're not trying to sell anyone anything. Our job is to share information and gather data. And then if there is something that the board feels is really critical that does need to be communicated, but it just doesn't fit into the survey, the other great standard practice is to build a FAQ and then provide that on the website so people can go deeper into those details if they want to. So that's kind of the flyover. Let me get the survey up now. So this survey is designed to be printed on 2 11 by 17 sheets of paper. So it's going to be like a little book. It'll have 8 panels. What you're looking at right now is the opening letter. This opening letter is being written from TJ, our superintendent, as well as the entire board. And I'll let you read it. Really, the opening paragraph is really to acknowledge the district has navigated through some difficult past couple of years, but we feel we're in a much better position. We're going to develop a plan that reflects the priorities of our taxpayers. The second paragraph really goes to need, and that's specifically tied to the fact that you've got too many buildings for the number of students that you're educating, and also that your enrollment has dropped. And we are committed to gathering your data to inform not only our facility plans, but also to help us become what we're calling a destination district. So I'll pause. Any questions on process and or the opening letter?
Looks like no questions.
Okay. The call to action is to take the survey. When this gets printed, it will get mailed out to every household in the district. Underneath feedback2000.com, there will be a unique alphanumeric code. They are unique and can only be used once. So if someone has really strong opinions and wants to take the survey lots of times, they will not be able to do that, but they can take it once. People can also return the mailed paper survey. There will be a business reply envelope provided, and it'll come back to our offices. We're also making the survey available in Spanish. We're still going to put in a phone number there. And then also if people want a second survey, if you've got multiple adults in your household, you can contact the district to request an additional survey. And we will make accommodations for other languages and or disabilities if they arise. Our goal is to come back and share what will be a very good preliminary report on November 7th. There will still be a few surveys probably trickling in, but we believe we can turn around in 2 weeks and get back to the board a pretty good preliminary report. Any questions on second half of the first page?
No questions.
All right.
Actually, I have a question. I'm a board member, not the board secretary. So we're under the name. It says I'm board secretary, but I'm actually board member.
Our board member. Okay.
Yeah.
We got board member. We will change that right now.
Thank you.
All right.
And then my other question is about the sentence about if you need help or you want this in another language. What is it? The one right below the box. Yes. Is there a less verbose way to say that? Just so it's easier for somebody who maybe doesn't read English to understand that they can get it in a different language from the district office? Yeah,
right now we're going to have in Spanish, we're going to make it available, and this hopefully is a little bit, but if there are other languages you'd like us to translate that into, we could do that. As far as
I'm just thinking that one sentence is kind of long. And so we do have a couple other languages in our district that are quite common. So I don't know if maybe I'm just thinking in terms of what you said about reading level and wordiness, maybe alternate formats, alternate languages, something like that. Please contact district office. Just a thought. I don't have any exactly how to write that, but for another language or something like that.
Good suggestion. I think I could take out, what I just crossed out, and that would probably people would still get what they're, all right. Very good. I will remove that. All right. Anything else on opening letter? All right. Page 2, our goal here is to really let people know that we're worried not only about facilities, but also improving the district always. So we said the Davenport Community Schools wants to be the district of choice when families are choosing where to send their children to school, a great teacher is looking for a job, or a business is looking to relocate or expand. Then we have some statements against a great, good, fair, poor scale. By the way, these are statements we use on many, many, many community surveys, so it will allow us to provide some comparison data, as well as it provides the district baseline data. So if you want to do some survey work a year, 2 years down the road and measure your performance, you can use those items, as well as the overall question, which is overall on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely you'd be to recommend the district to a friend or family member. Again, great baseline data. There's also strong correlation between support for a bond and overall satisfaction. So it helps us kind of discern the data. We do have one open-ended question. What do you believe makes our school district unique or special? So let me hit pause. Any questions or comments on page 2?
Director Beck, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Director Gordon.
Are we going to have the opportunity to ask questions about the whole thing at the end, or are we just doing page by page?
Whatever you'd like, whatever your preference is.
Okay, I would like to comment at the very end on the thing as a whole, but for this page in specific, the what do you believe makes our school district unique or special, I think that needs, if we continue the format as it is, I think that needs to be made larger and bolder perhaps, because people who speed read are going to miss it and not realize that they're supposed to answer that.
All right.
Speaking as a speed reader.
Okay. And by the way, most people take it online. When you take it online, there will be a box and a space for it, so it calls it out a little bit better. But I can work on making that a little bit bigger. All right. Anything else on page 2? All right, page 3. Now we get into the facility work that you've all been involved with. These are really trying to summarize on one page the most pressing needs. And by the way, the graph that you're looking at is really a placeholder right now. We've got a graphic team that's going to work on making it prettier. But I thought it was pretty compelling, at least to explain your maximum capacity, as well as your declining enrollment in terms of both actual and projected. So that's a big part of what we want people to be educated on when as they speed read and work through the survey. And over the past 20 years, your enrollment has dropped by more than 2,000 students, which then causes excess capacity. So we try to, again, at a high level, kind of provide the information in terms of number of buildings, maximum capacity, current enrollment, as well as excess capacity by seats. And the fact that does cost the district a lot of money to maintain all those really underutilized areas. You also have a challenge of, as does really every district in the country, aging buildings. Your average building is more than 68 years old, and they need some attention. They need some investment. And then also the outdated classrooms and support areas. And this gets into how education's changing, and we've got to modify our physical environments to better teach our kids. We are not asking the question, should we right size or downsize? I think that decision's already been made by the board. Rather, we're going to be going down this trail of closing buildings, renovating the existing buildings, or remaining buildings, and consolidating operations. And this is where we will provide not only a link, but also a QR code, so that's to get made up for people who want to go deeper, want more information. That information will live on your website. So let me hit pause after page 3, the needs page.
Director Klein-Jerome.
What was sent to us does not match what's now up on the screen. Like ours says during the past 10 years, yours says during the past 20. Our graphs don't match. So are we working off of what you have up there or what we were sent?
Yeah, we're really this has been so we've been working on it over the weekend. So you are looking at a draft document that continues to get updated.
Okay.
Yep.
Director Beck, did you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay. So then we go down to this idea that we really have two different pathways to pursue. We kind of came up with a language of a roadmap to excellence. So based on the recommendation of your committee, we've developed a master plan. It came up, it's going to be very expensive to do it. We know we can't do it all at once. So therefore we have to kind of turn left or turn right and go down one of two different pathways. So we try to, again, at a high level, explain that pathway one would result in a school configuration with 12 elementary schools, 6 intermediate, and 3 high schools with a specialty high school and the corresponding grade level configuration. We then try to, again, at a high level, explain what this option would entail in terms of investing more money in the intermediate level in the first phase, provide higher annual operational savings because you're going to have fewer schools, create additional space at each elementary school by moving the 5th to 6th and 6th grades to the intermediate level. Those kiddos would have access to higher level courses and create an intermediate school that would separate kind of a school within a school concept, the 5th, 6th grade and the 7th and 8th grade. So we felt those are the big thoughts behind pathway one. We also want to explain that other things will be done in future phases. So again, at a high level to show what would be done in phase one as well as future phases. I'm going to jump ahead and do the other one right away, and then we'll do questions. So pathway two would result in 15 elementary schools, 5 intermediates, and the same 3 high schools. This option's a little less money into the intermediate level and increased funds at the high school level. It has a lower annual savings as compared to option one and organizes the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students in houses. And then again, the same corresponding table that shows the phases, what would be done in phase one as well as what would be done in phase two. We then get to a question and we ask people to select their option. If they'd only support pathway one, only support pathway two, maybe they're indifferent or would be supportive of both, or they don't like either one. So again, this is our turn left, turn right question to kind of find out where people want us to head. And then there are always people who aren't sure and need more information. Roughly 10% of your community will fall into that bucket based on our experience. So let me hit pause and respond to questions on this format.
Director Beck, do you have any questions?
Just one real quick. Would this be where you might have a link or a QR code to say for more details on these pathways? Or is that something that would happen later and that's too much detail for this level?
Yeah, there's too much detail. That's really that we're trying to cover that under this one. We actually say it on the back page as well as here.
Yeah.
But no, we wouldn't keep directing people back to that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Anyone else?
Director Klein Jerome.
Not so much the survey, but a question on the pathway one. Was one of the options 5 intermediate schools that I thought one was just the idea of Jackson and Jefferson was in there, but then it could be just Jackson as the intermediate school. I mean, is there a possibility it could be 5 intermediates instead of 6?
It could. The pathway one, which was the option 1A and 1B that was last presented, did have 12 elementary, 6 intermediates, and then what's being called pathway two, which presented to the board was option 3, had the 15 and 5. You could change this at any time at your discretion. These were honoring those pathway options that have been presented at the community meetings. What that does on the pathway one is it left it open-ended. Either you could invest in SMART or consider moving SMART to the Jackson campus. You could invest in Wilson or move that to the Jefferson campus. Those were kind of left to be determined. Williams, sorry. So that was an open-ended, leaving the ability to divert funds how you might see best fit. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a really good observation. And I think if you as a board feel the added level of transparency of 5 or 6 on pathway 1 would be beneficial. It may create more confusion, like how do you not know whether it's 5 or 6? I think that's the only risk of adding more detail there. But I think it would defer to you as a board if you think that is a little more true to the work you've done to date.
Director Posture.
One thing as a board that we haven't been able to discuss since this has just been kind of presented to us, but to me, it's kind of a shock at some of what some of this is going to cost. And so, there's nothing in the survey, related to cost. I'm thinking about, what the thoughts of the taxpayers are going to be with some of this. We briefly have discussed it in Finance Committee a little bit, but I guess down the road, these pathways are going to be more directed towards, can we afford it?
That's a good observation. We're getting to the cost versus tax impact question coming up shortly here. And the reason that we didn't introduce cost here is because conceptually, if the board agrees, the first phase of investment in either pathway, if we just consider SAVE and PEPL fund availability, would be the same total investment, not the full 400 million, but it would be the first phase of investment would be the same regardless of which pathway the board and the community elect to proceed with. We'll then get to the next conversation, which is specific to the consideration of a bond referendum. So if that helps, Bill, I'll hand it back to you to talk through this piece.
Okay. No, you're exactly right. So we disclose the fact that it's a lot of money, in excess of 400 million. And then we get to the funding support page. As a result of careful planning, the district will be able to pay for a portion of the first phase through SAVE and PEPL funding, which will not impact your property taxes, regardless of the pathway selected. So removing that as a variable, we are asking the community to consider an $85 million bond to complete the first phase. And it, more money would go into different areas. We tried to explain what that would be. And then we showed, and by the way, this is new too. This just came a few hours ago. So apologize for that. But so this came back, and these are for the residential, commercial, and ag assessed values and the corresponding taxable values. These are the impacts that folks would see on their taxes. So now we're kind of over it. And then we ask the question, assuming the pathway chosen is acceptable to you, would you support an $85 million bond referendum to fund the first phase of the plan? And then against a scale of definitely yes to definitely no. And based on our experience, we've got actually very good, it's very, very good data in terms of, you might not like it, but it's very predictive in terms of how people actually vote when they get to the polls. So, and then we have 2 open-ended, if there's any other information you would, need before making a decision. Sometimes it's an information issue, or if you would not support, what's the primary reason? If there's some aspect of the plan that you don't like, let us know. We will gather that data as well. So let me hit pause on the funding support page.
Director Poston.
Maybe I didn't state my concerns clear enough, but what I'm getting at is, we should be looking at how we can do some of this without an $85 million bond. Just to throw that out there and say, yeah, we're going to have a bond referendum. We're going to come up with $85 million. I think we need to look at how can we do and make the changes, close buildings without having a bond referendum.
No, I think that's a great point. And if we go back to the tables in the prior two pathway explanations, I believe, and maybe this isn't strong enough, but closing existing elementary school buildings is identified as a phase one project. And nowhere in the survey do we connect the bond referendum with phase one work. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with you. Maybe this isn't as direct enough, but we were trying to be transparent that there will be elementary school closures, but they aren't connected to the bond question. They will, and if the board, obviously the will of the board will dictate that, determine how many elementary school buildings could be closed, which is still on track to be discussed in November and December.
And just to add a little bit of that, part of this is to give you a measure for testing the aptitude of the community as a whole as to their willingness to support any work that cannot be accomplished with the funds the district already has at their disposal. So it gives you a ability to test this and get some feedback so that as we speculate how to apply the funds you do have, if you can't get all the things done that you want, now you have a database to kind of help guide you if you should try to seek out the use of any general obligation bond effort, or should you strategize this some way. So it's just giving you another tool to put in your toolbox to kind of help figure out how to solve that problem. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. This is not obligating you to a bond effort or asking if people will do anything other than give you their appetite level for a tax impact to their household.
I think that's exactly right. You're not going to referendum, you're going to survey. And then you'll find out. And if there's absolutely no appetite, that's good to know. And then you've got to circle back and decide how to allocate your limited funds.
Well, I just think I would have liked to had a little bit more, I guess, direction from architects as far as more of a least cost way of looking at this instead of throwing these big dollar figures out. I think from what we've gone through as a district, I think that we should be looking at least cost on all of this.
I appreciate that feedback, and I think we have generally been doing some of that work. The question is least cost meaning first cost, or least cost meaning ongoing operational cost. And I think, as we've discussed with the board previously, there is a difference between those two when it comes to the two pathways being considered. And the big variable is the 5-8 versus 6-8 intermediate or middle school conversation. Conceptually, the 5-8 model gets you to fewer buildings, which means long-term operational expenses are theoretically less. But it does come at a higher first cost, which we do reveal in the bullet points that introduce each of the pathways within the survey. So I completely agree with your thoughts regarding that. And that is the level of detail that is really hard to dive into in an 8-page survey, but is detail that we're very happy to have conversations with the board about as we advance from survey to conversations regarding first phase of elementary school closure to future phases of investment, if any.
Well, I just feel that on what's being proposed now is there's way too many remodels. And when we get into remodels, you get into added cost and you get buildings that weren't meant to be that kind of building, whether it's a junior high or an elementary. So that concerns me that all the money that would be spent on remodeling we've made those mistakes in the past in this district, and I don't want us to see them make those same mistakes.
Thank you, Director Passion. We can surely bring examples of, here is a what we'll call a like new, I'll use an intermediate or junior high school as an example, compared to what a new school of a similar capacity, size, amenities, et cetera, would provide you. And those are obviously board decisions to be made, nobody else. And we're looking forward to entering the next phase of these conversations with that level of detail for you to provide feedback on.
Director Hayes. Director Beck, did you have any questions?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I worry about with the funding support here is just making it clear to people, and this might have to be at the beginning, I don't know, that the money to do this first phase is not only not impacting property taxes, it's not money that's coming from teacher salaries, classroom supplies, things like that. I don't think the average person necessarily knows what the SAVE and the PEPL funds are for. So just some sort of statement there. Of course, then we'd have to cut a statement somewhere else. The fact that those are not going to impact, staff salaries or whatnot. The second thing I might say is that second sentence there that says, regardless of the pathway selected. When I first read that, I was like, wait, 85 million to finish the first phase. I think the way I understand you're saying it is that we don't need a bond referendum to complete the first phase of either plan. And so the way that's worded, it makes it sound like we might need that. I think it would be better to say $85 million bond referendum for future phases, right? And then it's much clearer that this is not money for either of these pathways to start.
I think great points, both of them. I think the first one would potentially just be able to expand on, which will not impact your property taxes, or take dollars from the operating budget.
Correct. Yeah.
And not kind of parentheses, teacher salaries, et cetera,
Yeah.
whatever might be appropriate there. I think if we go the route of saying that 85 million is not needed to complete the first phase, we just need to go back up to the table of first phase projects and remove some of those that wouldn't be able to be achieved with only SAVE and PEPL funding. So right now we built the pathway 1 and pathway 2 in the phasing columns based on conceptually SAVE, PEPL plus the bond.
Yeah, I see now where it says a portion would be able to be completed. Okay, I misread that first statement, so forget what I said about that part.
No worries. This is why we have these conversations. It's important that this is clear and understandable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on funding support? And really we can test any amount. I mean, that's a variable. We just have to pick a number and say, this is what we're asking. So that's a variable, but that would allow us to do, as Matt said, the work that was highlighted at a high level in the charts. We then go on. Actually, the 7th page of the survey is simply demographics information. And it's important for us to make sure our seniors are well represented. That's why we ask the age question. We're going to ask one question on primary residence. We want to make sure the person can in fact vote. That's why that is there. We will be able to disaggregate by municipality. And we're going to look at subgroups. Employees are an important subgroup, but they represent less than 1% of your voters. Parents are an important subgroup, representing probably 25% of your community. But the most important group neither work at the district nor have kids attending the district. And we want to make sure that they are well represented in the data. And that's the way we do that is by creating 3 mutually exclusive subgroups when we do your analysis. So you'll see the method to our madness when we do the analysis, but that's important. All right. Any questions on demographics? Okay.
Hang
And
on,
then,
hang on.
oh.
Director Gordon?
This isn't so much a question as a comment, but I know that Davenport School District employees do not tend to feel comfortable answering surveys. And so you might leave a don't wish to respond on that, or leave that question off, especially if it's less than 1% of the responding.
Yeah, they will respond at a high level based on our experience, but what ends up happening is the total, all the data is overrepresented in terms of proportions of staff and parents. So to remove any bias, that's why we ask the question. And we also need to encourage the employees that this is being done by an independent outside party to maintain their confidentiality. But they will respond disproportionately because they're interested. They have a vested interest in what happens here.
Bill, from that perspective, can you even connect an employee's response to the data in your system after it's submitted?
I can't, no.
So maybe with strengthening the language when the email is sent, encouraging staff to participate and making it clear that you have no ability to connect their response within your system, if that would be helpful.
Sure. All right. And then the last page is the mailing panel. That's an easy one. And again, we're going to have a place to make sure that if people want to know about or want more information, we're going to have some informational meetings. We're trying to promote that on the backside of the web or on the survey. And then again, just the deadline of October 24th. So I will hit pause and then listen for more questions about survey process and content.
Director Gordon.
So I want to acknowledge that a lot of time and effort has gone into this survey, and I appreciate that you pointed out at the beginning that you're going for the right tone and tenor and wanting to ask the right questions and wanting to keep it simple. However, that said, I understand that this is going out to the community and not just families, and that's, I guess, even from what you just said regarding the demographic stuff, that's apparently your target audience, which maybe is a lot of retirees and stay-at-home parents who have a lot of time and money, free time to spend looking over this and reading it in detail, and the money to maybe not be such a concern for a bond referendum. However, because this is the Davenport district and these are the families that are going to be most affected by it, I have to argue that the survey is not intended for those families. It does not take the vast majority of our families into mind. This is not a survey that is geared to a single parent of 5 kids working 2 jobs who barely has time to eat and sleep, much less interpret a whole lot of technical information. I don't think it's geared towards a blue-collar family that has 2 working parents and 3 kids and activities every day of the week and the weekend. I think that to be most effective towards the people that it's going to impact the greatest, it could be even less wordy, easier to read in that all of the survey questions could be on one page in a clear format. Because as it is now, they're kind of interspersed, and I do appreciate that you highlighted them blue to make them stand out more. But I'm just here to tell you it's overwhelming, and that's coming from someone who has a degree in English. But I am a parent of busy teenage people, and I do work 40-hour-a-week job. And when I looked at it, I was like, this is a lot for my brain, and I'm on the board. So that's my 2 cents about it. Again, that's not a personal attack. It's just, I think that we need to really be considering the people that are going to be most impacted and what their take on this is going to be, because right as it stands right now, it seems like it's geared more towards the responses that you want instead of the responses that we need. Thank you.
Director Hayes.
Again, thank you for all the time and effort put into this. And my primary question was the question here with the township that you live in. With Davenport having a new turnaround with the new logo, I question how the other townships may even just blow the survey off since it's not really affecting their district. But I understand for the referendum that it needs to be on there to include everyone in Scott County, but I kind of question the wording on this particular portion of it. Pleasant Valley, Allens Grove, all the other townships outside of the district. So,
Yeah, we actually went through that today and narrowed it down tighter, so some of those went away.
Okay. Yeah, but that was just basically through everything my main concern with this.
Comment on Director Gordon's comments. For Director Potts and I, when we were going through some of this stuff, we wanted to make sure we were as transparent as possible because there was quite a few of our district families that went to the state board and said we were not transparent and we did not give all the information out. So we felt the need that we needed to put all the information out there so everyone can make an informed decision. I totally understand your point. I have 4 kids in school. I get it. But that was some of the rationale behind that. We wanted to make sure that no one could say they didn't have enough information. We wanted to make sure there was a link that they could check. You know how many people I run into at the grocery store and, I didn't even know you were doing this. Well, I don't know what rock you're living under. We posted on everything. We put it on our website. And I feel too that our staff members certainly should answer this stuff because that's another complaint that we get, that we don't listen to the staff and they don't have an opportunity because the majority of the forums the staff showed up for. So I want to make sure that was a big thing for Director Potts and I, that we tried to be able to have everyone to have a place for their voice to be heard as well as informed. And we did have the discussion, like Director Poshen had brought up, about putting money on there. This phase will cost this and that. But I think it was even Director Potts thought that would be too much out there. And then it looks like we're trying to lead people to a certain way, and we didn't want to come across that way. That was kind of the rationale behind that. I kind of wish he would have been here, but so we didn't want it to, we wanted to have enough information out there, but not seem like we didn't want to come across that we were leading one way or the other. Because obviously we all have not discussed any of this stuff outside of, this is a survey that's going to go out, or when the committee meets and then they bring back and report back to all of us. But otherwise, as far as everyone on the board, we haven't really, hey, we were going this way or that way. So we were trying to kind of keep it at the 30,000 foot view and kind of watch down. Are there any other questions on this? Director Beck, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to make a quick comment. I see Director Gordon's point, but if I heard correctly, a large part of the property tax payers in the district / county are people who do not have children in the district. Is that right?
Could you say that one more time?
So a large portion of the property tax paying people in the district, like that would be affected by this, are not people who have children in the district necessarily.
That's correct. So generally speaking, the rule of thumb is about 75% of your community neither work in the district nor have kids in the district. And they're the ones that are really going to determine whether or not this is a a plan they would support or not. So we want to be sure that group is, all groups are important for different reasons, but in terms of sheer number of votes, that's your largest voting block.
Okay, so I think, knowing that, and that this is going out to all the residences, I encourage us to think about other ways of surveying the voices that might not be represented by these people, by the people who would respond to this survey. But I totally understand the need for, it's a fine line to walk between transparency and too much information. So I appreciate you guys putting all this time into it. I know, and everyone who's worked on it, I appreciate that. So just a thought, maybe there's a way we can sort of somehow get at some of those other voices, not necessarily in this exact way, but, make sure that everybody's heard. And I think we've been trying to do that. So thank you.
Can you go back to how parents and staff are informed and encouraged to participate, just to make sure that the board's comfortable with how much work is done to make sure their voice is heard through this?
Just in general?
Yeah, this will be emailed to staff, right? And
All right.
So just
Sure.
a general premise of how they're encouraged to engage in this.
Yeah, so we have different strategies for every group. So yes, prior to the survey actually hitting in mailboxes, all staff will receive it by email. The reason we do that is twofold. One is they're your key communicators. So they're, obviously parents will ask staff, but they also very likely live in your district. They've got friends, they've got neighbors, and they're going to ask, tell us about that. So we want to be sure the staff is engaged, and if they have questions, they can ask the district questions prior to it landing in mailboxes. Once it goes out into mailboxes, because we have parent email addresses, we will, in addition to making it available on paper, we will, to make it more convenient, there will be a unique link that will be sent, and it'll say, for your convenience, you'll be able to take the survey by clicking on this link. You're good to go. So that'll be a strategy for increasing parent participation. For increasing the non-parent, non-staff participation, that is your most difficult one. Some districts will go as far as holding events, specifically and typically for non-English speaking folks to come in to help with translation and to help them answer their surveys. You could consider some of that, but that's a more challenging and more time-consuming strategy to do that. But some districts will go that far with the non-English speaking folks. But so when the dust settles, that ends up being it's the best way we've come up with to maximize participation by all three key groups.
Would it be possible to translate the survey into a couple different languages?
Sure, absolutely.
For those families that don't speak English?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
Director Gordon.
I just wanted to make another comment on the transparency. I'm glad to hear that was taken into account, and I do believe that it's informative for sure. I think another thing that might help the transparency is to include the names of the schools that will be directly impacted, and perhaps even the potential new boundaries for those pathways. We've all seen those in the plans, and I know people can go online and hunt them down, but I think if we can get a small graphic of some sort, even just wording to show, because that's the information that a lot of people in the district are going to want.
Yeah, that's a great thought. And we actually discussed that a little bit over the last couple draft survey reviews. And the reason we didn't put them in here is because the board hasn't taken action on them. They're publicly available. They've been discussed in public meetings. They are available when you use the QR code later on in the survey, which links you to the work that's been done. So the goal is not to hide them, but I think we're collectively a little bit nervous about also putting them out there before the board has formally taken action on which school or schools would formally be closed. We also don't have boundaries. We don't do the rebounding before the decision is made. There can be some rough ideas that may come forward in November and December when the board has these conversations, but the final line where it goes is going to take more analysis. And it's almost impossible to convey within a survey with this type of survey with that level of specificity exactly where that boundary would go.
I think
sentiment is shared. We've discussed it multiple times leading up to tonight, though.
And the other consideration was if the board said, well, we feel comfortable closing X number of buildings, which might be different than the pathway recommendation, or conversely, maybe the board chooses to close more buildings than what's in the recommendation. This at least leaves it open-ended that you as a board, as you gain more information in this process, will be making that decision that involves just loosely closing elementary buildings, which is what the question is asking.
Director Klein Jerome.
I agree. I don't want to see buildings listed because while you presented them, that does not mean that I, as a board member, agree that those are the buildings. So I would not want to put that out there till we have made that decision. I need a clarification. So you're going to send this survey to all staff regardless if they don't live in Davenport?
Yes.
I guess
Yes,
that
and then-
bothers me that you get a say in it, but you don't live here and it's not financially ever going to make an impact on you.
Right. And so what we do is they will be asked, and they are influencing people's opinions and whether or not this is a good idea or not. But their data will be removed from the funding support question if they indicate that they do not have a primary residence in the district. So they will be respondents, but they will not be voters. So they will be removed from that question.
Okay, thank you.
Director Beck, did you have anything else?
Nope.
I was like figuring this was going to go way longer. When will you all want us to take action? Because we will vote on the survey before we send it out, correct?
I'll take that one. So our goal was to get the final feedback tonight, and the board will vote September 12th on the cost of the survey. So when they leave tonight, they're going to begin the work to send the surveys out. So this is not requiring board action, but this is requiring all the feedback to the board. The action comes from the dollar amount associated with it. That's correct, Kate? Yep. Yes, we will send the ready to print copy to the board.
And from the timing standpoint, the goal is to have data set for presentation to the board in November, which should time out with discussions on master plan in phase one, which Director Poston would include projections of costs so that you can start formulating what we feel the right course of action is as we move into December.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry.
Sure.
So if I understand correctly, you are sending this to every property or residence in the county or in the district boundaries, maybe some that are not, just because of the way bulk mailing works. But also every staff member is going to get emailed it, and every family, so every parent is going to get emailed it.
Yes.
Okay. Then I definitely would encourage that we have some in our pockets that are translated into our primary languages. Because I know we've got several that we've been doing that with all of our other important.
Sure.
I think it's really important to hear from as many of those people as we can.
Our
Absolutely.
plan is to
Hang on one
translate it.
I want to clarify something on what Director Beck said. It will get emailed to every family that we have their email information, because not every family has that updated on their campus portal. So I don't want you to say it's open-ended and everyone was going to get it. If the district doesn't have your information, obviously they can't send it to you. I just want to clarify that.
Yes. So I should say every parent needs to make sure that their email is updated in the parent portal.
There you go.
And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but you provide paper copies that could be placed in the district admin and potentially at buildings as well?
We do. We always want to strike a balance of being inclusive, make sure everyone has the opportunity, but we also want to maintain some control so I don't come back to the board and someone says, well, I heard someone took the survey 50 times. We want to strike the balance of being inclusive and yet have some control. So this is, what we've done many, many hundreds of this. We've come up with, this is kind of our best process to do this. And I absolutely agree. We need to translate it into whatever languages that would be appropriate for the district.
Director Gordon.
Could we go back to page 3 for a minute? Brenda, do you mind
Sure.
scrolling back to that? I just want to see if mine is different, because some of the wording is a little, and now that I'm looking at it closer. So under where it says excess capacity, that sentence about, because it's not possible to selectively heat, cool, and maintain portions of our school buildings. To me, that doesn't really fit right there. I feel like the excess capacity heading should just be right over the graph or chart, and then that wording could
go away.
Go somewhere else maybe, because that seems, I don't know, strange to me. And then also under the aging buildings, your first sentence, on average, our buildings are more than 68 years old. These older schools are more expensive to maintain. So more expensive than what? So if we're going to say more, then we need something to compare it to, but all but what one of our buildings is over 68 years old. Like a lot of them are really old, right?
Well, the average age is 68, obviously. So
we could just leave out the word more.
Would it just make sense to state that because our buildings are on average more than 68 years, it's going to require some level of capital expenditure to get them up to par?
I think that makes
Something
more
like
sense. Yeah, wording wise. That's all.
Okay.
Director Beck, did you have anything else?
No.
Did you have anything? I cut you off earlier. It's going to be translated. Okay. Did anyone have any other questions? We're only voting on the expense for sending the survey. So as the survey is with Director Gordon's suggestion, is everyone good with that survey? Because then on Monday night, we'll vote on the expense for the mailing and the survey.
And they're going to send us a final draft before it gets sent out, just so we can get one final read.
Everyone that's in attendance. I'm just kidding. With the updated wording from Director Gordon's suggestion. Perfect. Nothing else? All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being on with us tonight. We appreciate it.